Hey, welcome to another episode of my video blog. It is 7 a.m. in Johannesburg. I'm about to jump on the mat in a little while, just waiting for my training partners to pitch up. And I thought, seeing that I've got a little bit of time, let me shoot another video and talk about something that actually has been coming up throughout the last few days of training. It's what I call the paradox of performance. Now, just like everybody else, I want to get really good at my game. Of course, the people that I train with, they want to get really good at their game. But what I tend to find a lot of times is that there are three things that stand out a lot when we're talking about performance. And when I mean performance, I mean, especially if you're trying to improve your sparring game or your live rolling game, this is really about the idea of actually performing against a resisting opponent. Now, what typically I find is that people want three things. They want certainty, they want things laid out for themselves, and they want to see the end goal. Right? So certainty, things laid out, and see the end goal. And that tends to bring up a lot of frustrations for them because, of course, there's the aspect of learning techniques, and I don't want to take that away because I think it's important to learn the techniques. But what a lot of times where people struggle with is that they've learned a couple of techniques and they come in and they roll that day or they spar that day, and they have this expectation that it should unfold exactly as it did in the training environment when they were working the techniques. Now, one of the things, of course, that's very different is that there's one thing when you're training with a cooperative opponent and something completely different when you're dealing with an uncooperative opponent, a resisting opponent. The fact remains is that this is a human being that you're working against who has their own internal kind of mechanisms, their own way of doing things that often you're not privy to, right? I don't know what you're thinking about. I can't get inside your head. And so you're organic and you're alive and you're moving and you're reacting. And oftentimes you don't even know what you're going to do next until you actually do it. So if you look at it from that perspective, it's very difficult to go in against what we could call a chaotic environment, a chaotic system, another human being, and have this kind of predefined plan on what you're actually going to do. I'm going to come in, I'm going to do A, B, and C. If you've ever tried to do that in a live environment, like live sparring, live rolling, you will recognize that oftentimes that doesn't happen, right? It actually goes in the opposite direction. You get less of what you were trying to do. So my suggestion to people is that you have to kind of almost suspend your expectations when you enter the school, the academy, the dojo. When you get on the mat and you're going to spar, you're going to roll against a live opponent, suspend your expectations. This is a very difficult thing for people to do because people want to achieve success. They want to see the success. They want to be able to tell themselves that they're being successful. And although that in itself could be a very in-depth discussion, but I will argue that a lot of times it's that kind of stuff that holds people back from succeeding, because what you tend to do then is you spend so much time thinking about that stuff when in actual fact you should be fully embracing the experience in front of you, the role, the sparring match. So, you're actually sparring and you're rolling, but you're not really there. You're somewhere else in your head. And it's that disconnect that often causes this kind of frustration in people. And so if you can suspend your expectations when you come in and say, look, here I am. I'm going to have the fullness of this experience. Whatever it presents, I'm going to just go with the flow. I'm just going to do it. And in the moment that I need to come up with something, that I need to adjust, I'm going to just allow my body to make that decision for me. This is crucial. So what I tend to think about every day that I get on the mat is, just come down, come and train, and just be there. Just think of that every day as a new experience. Every day you're going to just attempt to be the best that you possibly can. And that best is without expectations, without wanting to achieve certain outcomes. Just be fully present. That's very important as well on the days when you don't actually want to train and you don't actually want to come down, you don't feel like it. And so, very important just to be there. Consistency is key. You're like seeing each day as one step closer to success. So rather than constantly focusing on the final destination, the key to successful performance is focusing on the journey. Rather than worrying about what's going to happen tomorrow or focusing on what went wrong yesterday. It's about what can I do today? How can I bring myself fully present to this experience 100%? And one of the things, like I said, is being able to suspend expectations. Because this for me is the paradox of performance. Is that if you come in and you have expectations, you expect to achieve A, B, and C. As I said, 9 times out of 10, that doesn't happen. It doesn't unfold that way. Because you spend most of the training session then expecting certain things. When they don't happen, and they probably won't happen as you would like them to, then new thoughts come in, and oftentimes those are self-limiting beliefs, the self-doubt, frustration talk in your head. And you can actually see it on people's faces and in their bodies that when what they plan doesn't work, they give up. And so the secret to performance, the paradox to performance, is that you actually have to let go of all your expectations in order to achieve what you expect. This is the key. This is the hardest thing for people to understand. So my basic advice is that don't focus on the end goal. I mean, I'm not saying don't have goals, don't have things that you want to achieve, but that's for me is always after the training. It's something that you may reflect after you've actually had a performance, right? So after you've live rolled or after you've sparred, you may reflect on it. You may say, okay, these are some things that I need to work on. But in the actual experience, the actual live roll against a resisting opponent, what I want to be is completely present in that moment, having the full experience as it unfolds, without the expectations, without judgment, without worrying about if what I'm doing is right, if what I'm doing is wrong. Just going with the flow is really what it's all about. And that's kind of, guess, why I chose the tagline for my Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu expression, which is flow is the way. Because that's really what I'm saying, is that, there's a time to train and drill techniques, but training and drilling techniques is not the same as performing. And so, in that sense, you have to have a different way of approaching those two different experiences. There's one way that I want to move into the experience of training techniques when I'm trying to learn something new, and a very different way that I want to approach when I'm performing, when I actually have to play the game, so to speak. And when I'm playing the game, the one thing that I want to be doing there is be completely present, enjoy the process, bring the best that I have that day, not compared to yesterday, and not worrying about what that would look like tomorrow. Suspend my expectations, which is a big part of it, and just get on the mat and have fun, right? And fun is really important, because if the whole experience is stressing you out, and each time you get up from the mat, you kind of down, and you've got horrible things to say about yourself, that's never going to help you achieve success the next day. And that's my final thing that I'm going to talk about now, is that one of the things that I try to do as best as possible, not always easy, and I understand that, is that once I've had the experience, once I've performed, I get up, I walk off the mat, and I try to leave it there. Especially if things didn't go the way that I wanted them to go, it is just that one experience. Tomorrow is another experience, and it might be very different. Now, of course, I can reflect on some technical stuff, like, okay, I need to work a little bit more on that particular movement, or maybe this particular striking platform that I'm using, this kind of technique, the strategy and tactic, isn't as sharp as I would like it to be. I can go back and I can work that in my technical training, but I'm always doing it in a positive way. When I say, when I stand up and walk off the mat and leave that performance behind, one of the things that I'm leaving behind is the stuff of being negative about the experience, being down on myself, talking trash to myself about myself, which is never a good thing. So hopefully that helped you out. I mean, it's quite an in-depth discussion. I'm going to talk more and more about it and go into more detail in subsequent video blogs. But yeah, that's where my mind's at 7 o'clock in the morning. But I'm going to get on the mat in a bit, and I'm going to take my own advice. I'm going to just focus on the process. I'm going to show up today with the best that I have today. And I see it as each day is one step closer to success. I'm going to remove the focus on the outcomes, on winning, on getting things 100% right. and just be there. And in my experience, best way to achieve success.